So what is the advanced study phase? It is the last year of your studies, the 6th and the 7th semester. And it may be a bit far away because it is obviously after the next big step in your studies, which is the semester abroad. But once you come back, you will study for 2 more semesters, you will write a bachelor thesis, and that is what we call the advanced study phase, or in German, Hauptstudium. What I want to do is tell you a little bit about the differences, the main differences to the program as you know it so far. You have been studying for a number of semesters now in the basic study phase, the Grundstudium. So what are the differences? And the first and maybe most important difference is that you will have a choice. So whereas up until now you had to do what we have put in terms of modules where we have prepared for you in the study plans, in the advanced study phase you will, under certain limitations and certain regulations that I will explain to you, be able to choose those topics that you are interested in the most. And you will also be able to focus on particular areas in particular fields depending on your interests. So that is the first and most important difference. The second one is that it will be, with a very few exceptions, all in English. So for those of you who are already studying in English, there's no real change there, but for those who are in one of the German majors, that will be a difference. So all modules, with the exception of some specialized offers that we have for certain majors, everything that belongs to the general thematic areas will be taught in English. Now, I don't think there is any need to be scared. You all know English, you have English classes, and a lot of you will go abroad to an English-speaking country, or at least study in an English-speaking environment, so you have plenty of time to polish your English, and when you come back, you won't have any difficulty studying here in English. And the third is that we have vastly more topics, and that obviously goes hand in hand with the fact that you have a choice, is that there is just an abundance, I would almost say, of topics that you can choose from. All in all, the advanced study phase comprises currently 46 different modules. So that's quite a bit of a choice, considering that you will have to choose 8 out of those 46. Now, how does this look like in terms of the structure? What you see here are the 4 main thematic areas: finance and banking, which includes everything that has to do with finance and banking, unsurprisingly. The second area is managing organizations. Managing organization includes all topics that are somehow related to the management of a company, ranging from strategy to HR to other skills and topics that are necessary to run a company or any other organization. Economics is economics, both domestic and international economics. And then finally, the 4th thematic area, business and society, is an area that contains all topics that somehow have to do with the relationship of a company to its environment, to society, legal topics, intercultural topics, stuff like that. In addition, what you see to the right, there are 3 specialized tracks for some of the majors: for Wirtschaftsinformatik, for management philosophy and economics, and for those who are studying Wirtschaftsprüfung, Schwerpunkt Wirtschaftsprüfung. Those 3 majors, in addition to selecting courses from the main pool, they have specialized modules that are just offered for them, for their groups. And I said earlier, everything is in English with a few exceptions. Those are the exceptions. So those modules, for example, that are just offered for students of business information systems, Wirtschaftsinformatik, those will still be offered in German. Likewise for Wirtschaftsprüfung and for management philosophy and economics, a program which, despite having an English name, is a program that is offered in German. Now, what do you have to do? How can you choose? I said you have a lot of choice, but obviously you're not completely free. What you see here is valid for every major except for the 3 that have a specialized track. To them, I will get in a minute. For all the others, BBA, IBA, and those in the dual BWL programme, you have to do a total of 8 modules over the course of 2 semesters, and the rules are fairly easy. You can choose freely. The only condition is that with those 8 modules, you have to cover every one of those 4 areas at least once. Now, what does that mean? If you're broadly interested and you say, oh, you know, I want to spread out and I want to get to know as many areas, as many topics as I would like, you can do 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, which is 8. If you say one of those areas is really the one that I would like to specialize in, the one that I'm particularly interested in, then you can put all your eggs in that one basket, do 1 in each of the 3 remaining areas, and you're done. As I said, a total of 8 modules spread out over 2 semesters. You're also free to decide how many you're going to do in every semester. And that will also depend a little bit on the topics, because we're not offering topics every semester, we're offering them once a year. So you have to make that a little bit dependent on what you want to do. Our suggestion is that you do 5 modules in the 6th semester and another 3 in the 7th. Why? Usually you will write your bachelor thesis in the 7th or during the 7th semester. Therefore, it's advisable that you do a bit of a higher workload in terms of the courses in the 6th semester so that you have more time to focus on your thesis as well in the 7th semester. However, you don't have to do that. There are other options as well. So you can do a 4-4 split, or you could even do a 3-5 split if that's what you prefer. Although then, of course, you have to be very careful that you leave enough time to write your thesis. Now, for the special majors that I mentioned, there are some different rules because they have dedicated courses just for them. So let's talk about Wirtschaftsinformatik. What you see here on the left side are the 4 modules that are mandatory for Wirtschaftsinformatik, 2 in each of the semesters, and that leaves another 4 modules that you can choose from the big pot, the general areas. And here the condition is, with those 4, you have to cover at least 2 of the areas. So not 4, because that would not give you any space in terms of specialization, but 2 of the areas have to be covered. Which ones is up to you. Very similar BWL mit Schwerpunkt Wirtschaftsprüfung. Also those students have 4 dedicated modules that are mandatory. There is one slight distinction, is that one of those, Prüfungspraxis 1, you've already had that during the 4th semester, meaning you are having it now or you have just completed it. That technically is the first module of the advanced study phase. You will do another 3 during the 6th and the 7th semester, meaning that you can choose, or you have a remaining 4 modules free that you can choose from the big thematic areas. Again, you have to cover at least 2 of the areas. And finally, management philosophy and economics. Also, there are 4 dedicated modules for you in the 6th and the 7th semester. Now, the difference is that you don't have to choose all 4. You can, but you can also say, I just want to do 3. And this is important, especially for those of you who would like to do more in the management or the economics field. Because these are, not all of them, but a lot of them have a philosophical or an ethical focus. So you can decide whether you want to do all 4 or just 3 out of the 4. And correspondingly, you have either 4 or 5 modules that you can choose from the general area. And again, the same rule applies. With those 4 or 5 modules, you have to cover at least 2 of the areas. I mentioned the thesis. That is the final capstone of your bachelor studies. It takes 2 months, so you have 2 months to write the thesis. And there are different starting points throughout basically the 7th semester. So the earliest start is in July, so after the end of the 6th semester. And then you can basically start every month until, and that is the last starting point, mid-December. So mid-December, mid-January, mid-February, if you choose the last date, you would end, or you would have to hand in your thesis at the end of February, which is still within the limits of the semester because the semester runs until the end of February officially. So you can basically choose, and that will also depend a little bit, at least that's what we advise you, on how you divide up the modules, whether you want to write it in the summer break, in the semester break, you want to write it during the 7th semester, or you want to push it as far as possible to the end of your studies. If you start mid-December, you're basically through with all the classes from the 7th semester. So that'll depend on your preferences, the way you arrange your modules, and also obviously, you know, any other plans that you may have. So this is up to you. What can we give you in terms of more information for your choice? You will now hear an overview of each of the 4 thematic pillars that I introduced now. In addition, you will receive, in a few weeks' time, more in-depth information. There will be a short description for every module. You will also be able to see the draft module descriptions in the same format as you know them now, so that you can see exactly what is planned in those modules. And we've also offered to the professors the possibility to videotape a short statement where they explain to you what they're going to plan to do in their module. We'll make that available online. So those are the informations that we will give you to make a choice. And then there will be a selection process that will also take place this summer. Selection process will be done online through the online campus system. And there you will choose your modules according to your preferences. And it's very important that you take that seriously. You can, under certain circumstances, change your selection, but we will plan the program according to your choice. What does that mean? We will see how much demand we have for certain courses. So that may mean that certain courses that don't meet a minimum requirement in terms of participants will not be offered. It may mean that certain modules will be offered twice or even 3 times. So we will plan according to your demands, and that is also the reason why we have to do that fairly early. We're going to do this summer because we need the time to adapt to the demand. You will be able to change even at the start of the semester. So, if you have second thoughts and you say, maybe, my interest shifted during the semester abroad or whatnot, you can do so. However, be aware that that will obviously be subject to availability. So we will plan that, and then you can change, but only if there is space. And there's another reason why you should take this seriously, and that is that we will try to arrange the timings in a way that we can enable as many people as possible to get exactly that combination that they want. Now, with 46 modules, those of you who are good at math, you get an idea of the possible combinations, with everyone choosing 8 modules out of 46 in 2 semesters. So there are just not enough time slots available in the week that we could possibly make that without any overlaps. So some people won't get their choice, or not all of the choices, that is just inevitable, but we will plan it according to your selection so that we minimize those overlaps. Okay, so please spend some time reading the stuff, looking at the information that we will give you so that you can make an informed choice, a choice that really corresponds to your true interests, and that will help us plan accordingly and come up with a good program.